In more ways than one, Canelo has become the gold standard in what's accomplished inside and outside of the ring. Having the freedom to create his own narrative and choose his opposition at will is getting notice from his peers, most notably a former undisputed champion himself, Terence Crawford. When reflecting on Canelo's recent run in comparison to his moves, Crawford had the following to say to Sky Sports. He is definitely doing things differently to me because he is able and capable of doing those things. He has fought 4 times in the past year. He has become undisputed. He is getting all of the fights that he wants right now. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to. It has been frustrating, but what's meant for me, I will have. Everything happens for a reason, and I believe that my time is coming. I feel like I'm already there, but I have to prove it to the world, and it starts with Porter. All right, Doc, he got a tall glass of water ahead of him. Shawn Porter is somebody that's relentless. He's going to be in his face all night. But let's just say Crawford is able to get past Shawn. What should be his next move?
Well, since when a glass of water was hard to drink, I don't know
what I was talking about there.
Well, I'll tell you what. Listen, I think that Canelo is setting the tone, Barack. And I know he's not the first one. We know that Mikey Garcia went down that road as well. But I think Canelo, because he's such a high-profile athlete, and the fact that he went from, 11 months ago becoming undisputed at super middleweight, 3 fights on Dazn, and then the last one on Showtime pay-per-view, he is opening the eyes to a lot of fighters. And I think Terence Crawford, as much as I love the guys over at Top Rank at ESPN, I think for him, undoubtedly, no question about it, absolutely, he should seek other opportunities, but not tie himself up to another network, but follow in the footsteps of the pound-for-pound king. And I'm just talking about business-wise, but I'm not saying you have to follow Canelo, but if it's the right move, if towards the end of his career, he wants the fights that he's been yearning for. I think that the move is free agency in the sport of boxing.
Sounds good. And it's crazy that it's the politics that stops us from having these fights, man. And then you got a reporter asking, Bud these questions, and he's comparing his career with Canelo's, but I don't think he should even frown on his own career, because when you look at the total journey, it took both of them 6 years to get to their first title each. Canelo came in as a little kid, and Crawford came in as a young man. But the whole journey, Canelo took 16 years to become undisputed champion. And as far as Bud becoming undisputed champion in super lightweight division, that was only 9 years into his career. So he should still look back at his career and say, hey, listen, a few years into my career, I became a champion at 135. The next year, I moved up. First fight at 140, except that one when he beat up Prescott because he knocked out Amir Khan. The first one at 140, he became a champion. 2 years later, it took him 2 years to unify. Once he became champion in the super lightweight division, it took him 2 years and 4 months to become undisputed. So that in itself is a great milestone.
Not too shabby, and I'll add to that, Barack. Canelo Alvarez has been a star for quite a while in the sport of boxing. He's had a big following. Even back then, you and I were in the building when he fought Floyd Mayweather. That place was packed with Mexican fans. He's been a star in Mexico for a long time. And in this country, he's been pretty much a star for, the last 5-6 years. There were years ago, Bud was a guy that was so risky and he didn't have a high profile. So it was hard to get those fights because guys didn't want to take risks with this guy who wasn't going to bring them the biggest payday. Canelo was a guy that for a very long time, you're going to get the biggest payday against him. So guys are willing to take that risk. Yeah. So that's why Canelo's able to get the big fights, because guys are willing to take the risk for the payday. Bud didn't have that luxury. He was a guy that people avoided because of risk did not weigh the reward. So that plays a part in him not getting the fights that people wanted to see him in.
Very, very good point. We need to give you another round of applause. That's your 2 round of applause, and I don't know how I've been doing this for 10 years. That's not bad. 2 in 10 years. All right, so listen, it seems like people, like that, being their own boss. Floyd did it. Canelo did it. Oscar De La Hoya did it. Do you think if Bud does it, everybody will catch on to this and say, you know what do we need long-term contracts for?
I mean, I think they're doing it already. I think a lot of fighters are already exploring those options, talking to their managers, talking to other promoters, other networks. Believe it or not, baby, it might be under the radar, but they're talking about it, big.
Did you just say, believe it or not, baby?
You know, in the hood, in Brooklyn, how we say, yo, good shot, baby boy. Good shot, baby. That's how we talk.
A little too excited talking about believe it or not, baby. Nah, bro.
No, but
Wow.
Seriously, Barack, I think that fighters are, of course, Bud is, he's one of the best fighters in the world. I have him at my number 2, and if he does something, believe it, he's gonna influence a lot of fighters out there, no question. And can we argue with any guy that does it? Canelo is a proof of the pudding. Even before so, Mikey Garcia. It just makes the most sense. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think there'll always be promoters. I just think maybe the contracts would be shorter.
Oh, I'm not saying that boxing cannot thrive without promoters. These promoters do a hell of a job. I mean, obviously, Matchroom doing an amazing job globally. Golden Boy put in work for years. Top Rank has been in it forever. I mean, Bob Arum has promoted Muhammad Ali fights. So don't get it twisted. Not that there shouldn't be promoters. I think the fighters should be able to work with different promoters and be free to make these fights happen. Canelo's trainer and manager, Eddie Reynoso, was recently asked by Spanish language media who will the pound-for-pound king face next. His response was to the following: Arthur Beterbiev, Dimitri Bivol, Jamal Charlo, and David Benavidez are the most viable as options for Canelo. Barack, those names are mouth-watering and salivating for fight fans. Either guy. But what makes the most sense for Canelo Alvarez? His career, his legacy, his path to greatness, to being one of the greatest fighters that ever lived. What makes the most sense for him?
Okay. He's on a great journey already. Now, I would say that all of those fighters have their own perks. Probably Bivol has the least amount, not having a big name, very skillful, and when you compare him in the same weight class as Beterbiev, he doesn't have a big name neither, but he has 16-0. So that's alluring right there. Somebody who has a 100% knockout ratio. So you figure Beterbiev in the 175-pound division has the most perks for Canelo, to continue this journey as one of the best fighters in the world. But more popular than those guys is Benavidez. Benavidez just had a good outing the other day. He's very explosive. He's very dominant. That's why the people are clamoring for it. He has his own fan base. I believe he's half Mexican. I'm not sure. So that is alluring as well. But I do think on the top of that heat would probably be Jamal Charlo, because he also is popular, maybe a little bit more popular than Benavidez. And when you're talking about Jamal Charlo, you're talking about Mexican fans are just fans of the sport. Yes, they love their people and their fighters, but they're also fans of the sport. So I believe those fans also are familiar with Jamal Charlo. And he's a current champion. And you know that narrative that was going around talking about Canelo hasn't fought a black slick fighter, even though he fought Daniel Jacobs, so that would satisfy those people's yearning as well. So I think overall it would probably be Jamal Charlo is slim, just a little bit over Benavidez.
I agree with you. Great breakdown there, Barack. I'll add a name that's not on that list, and in my opinion, it makes the most sense for Canelo right now, and that's obviously Gennady Golovkin. Look, there are a lot of fight fans out there that still want to see that fight. You know those hardcore Triple G fans, Barack. The ones that feel that Triple G won the first fight, the ones that feel the second fight was really close. I think if Canelo were to ever to fight Triple G for the third time, it would have to be now. Now, because of his age, he doesn't want to leave any room, not down the line when after Triple G is 40, 41 years old. I think it will make sense Cinco de Mayo or Cinco de Mayo weekend in May for him to finish that chapter completely. The trilogy. Put it to bed. Put it to rest. Hey, and guess what, Barack? It's still the most lucrative fight in boxing outside of the heavyweight division. That's the fight that makes the most money, brings in the most numbers, and people want to see the most.
Well, Triple G's name kind of transcended the sport because his name was already tied in with Canelo 2 times. It was his most competitive fight as of recent, so it does make sense. But like Canelo says, if he beats him, he won't get the credit because then they'll say Father Time beat him.
Who cares? He'll get the check.
Ugas didn't get the credit.
Who cares about
he
the credit?
He don't care about the. There's no way Canelo cares about the money.
I'm not saying he cares about the check, Barack, but anything you do, Canelo didn't get credit for beating Caleb Plant. There are people still out there saying that who did Caleb Plant fight to win the title? So if we're gonna base it on getting credit,
got the undisputed, so you can't get nothing for beating Gennady Golovkin. Like it is a fight I want to see as well, but in his eyes, what do you really get?
It's a prideful fight. It's just to finally shut those last few
you won't
fans
shut
up.
those people up. You won't.
No, you will.
Because if he beat you already twice, and then you fight him now, and they say, up too late, he's old.
The hell with it. Still finish the job. And I'm not saying he can. Triple G is still a live dog out there. I'm just saying I think that fight makes the most sense. All right, speaking of Canelo, Barack, I want to give a major shout out to him for donating $1 million to Cancer Treatment Center for Kids. So he's putting money for a great cause. So I want to commend him for that. Kudos to Canelo Alvarez, man.
I mean, we know him personally, so we already know that generous heart. Listen, when you take two guys from Brooklyn and you feed them Wagyu steak every time you win, we knew you was generous, but shout out to Canelo. That's a beautiful thing.